Hi, Shalom, everyone. I'm going to continue the series of the great rabbis of year now, the first of Adar, mark the Hilula of a very famous rabbi in France, in an area called Sarkeles, if I'm not mistaken. His name was Rabbi Raphael, or Rabbi Raphael Yisrael, who was a very, very great rabbi, genius. He was a Dayan, and really would have an imprint on a French Jewry. That's something I very much have to point out over here. And I think he was actually born all the way back in 18 Tammuz in 1937, I'm not mistaken, in Fez, in Morocco. Very interesting enough. I believe he passed away back in the year 2006, obviously, on the 1st of Adar. He would really go on to make an imprint, just to say, in French Jewry. And obviously being from the city of Sarkeles, that was integral part in itself. That's where he was based and working. But I was actually from Fez in Morocco originally. Now, I think his uncle happened to be a famous rabbi, Rabbi Meir Yisrael. He was the undisputed sage, let's just say, of that city. Had a huge influence on him from a very young age. And I believe Rabbi Meir Yisrael has spoken about inside the series on several occasions before. That's very, very interesting. And remember, Fez was an area where there was many great rabbis of yesteryear. That's something that we have to point out. And it's a place we've spoken about here on various occasions before. And we probably recorded about at least maybe about 20 or at least 20 videos from rabbis that came from Fez, which has to very much be pointed out. I recommend everyone to learn more within regards to that. Maybe we'll add towards the end, we'll explore a few of the rabbis that actually came from Fez in itself directly. So he was born in 1937, talking about his uncle, Rabbi Meir, who would have like a huge imprint on him, and was also a famous Dayan. Now, I think his father was a hidden tzaddik. He was actually, let's say you could categorize him, Rabbi Aaron Israel, who was a very, very famous rabbi. And I'm not sure if what connection, let's say, they had with the Yisrael family, I think from Greece originally many years before, but I'm not sure if that is connected per se. That's something that I very much have to point out. Okay, so Rabbi Yisrael, so his father, Rabbi Aaron Yisrael, was described as a hidden righteous man who studied Torah throughout his life, and I think they say that there was a revelation of Elijah the prophet with him. That's what's reported over. So we know that many of the great tzaddikim and righteous tzaddikim would very much benefit from this. And it's actually interesting. His Torah scholarship was very, very great. He was 15 years of age, and obviously being, let's say, imbued in an atmosphere of kedusha, in holiness, and high-level Torah scholarship, he would actually fly to England, and he would go to the famous Sunderland Yeshiva, where Sunderland Yeshiva, we have to point out, was where many great Torah luminaries would study and teach. And I think, he would have a connection, if I'm not mistaken, with Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler. Now, he is that interesting rabbi. We've spoken about him on various occasions before. We are a channel that is really, trying to investigate the Sephardic history, but Rabbi Dessler was a very, very much great rabbi, and I think he was born in year 1893, passed away in 1953, so technically at that stage in time, Rabbi Yisrael would have been in this yeshiva Talmudic academy for about probably a couple of years until Rabbi Dessler had passed away. So who was Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler? He was also known as Mashkiach Rohani, the spiritual counselor, and I think had a connection very much with the famous Ponevezh Yeshiva. His father was Rabbi Reuben Dov Dessler, who was was very much part of the Musa movement, and I think he actually received education, Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler, in Yeshiva Kelm, if I'm not mistaken. He would get a rabbinic ordination. I think Rabbi Chaim Ozer-Godzinski, and become a spiritual leader, let's just say Orthodox Lithuanian Jewry over there. Rabbi Dessler was actually married to Rebbetzin Bluma, the granddaughter of the altar of Kelm, which is very, very interesting. And I think he would take on various importances. Eventually, he would head out to England, and we have to point out, when he was in Dalston, he started tutoring a number of young people, and for a while I think he was a private teacher of the Sassoon's family. That's and the pupil of this time Aryeh Carmel, if I'm not mistaken, became one of the main, let's say, had a connection also, you could say. Yes, so very, very interesting. Aryeh Carmel, I think, is also a rabbi I've spoken about on various occasions. Well, who was the Sassoon family? The Sassoon family is a very, very famous family. Obviously, from Baghdad Jews, from Iraq. It's a dynasty from finance. They sold opium. There was different companies, and we actually very much, let's just say, spoke about them. I think they came from either Aleppo, Syria, or Baghdad, Iraq, mistaken. And we did record and state of the importances within Barton. For example, there was David Sassoon, for example, who was a great man. Elias David Sassoon, Albert Abdullah David Sassoon, Rachel Sassoon Beard, Sir Edward Albert Sassoon, James Sassoon, also known as Baron Sassoon, David Solomon Sassoon, and really so on and so forth. Joseph Sassoon, and many of these would have great descendants and people who were famous philanthropists, I should say, in of its own right. So they would actually tutor, let's just say, Rob Eliyahu Dessler would actually tutor them. That's how great he was. Eventually would go to Gateshead and would form a Gateshead Kollel. And at that point in time, later on, he'd go to Ponevezh Yeshiva, so Bnei and become Mashkiach Ruchani. Very much great rabbi. He was an author of Nichtav Eliyahu, if I'm not mistaken, and various other great rabbis. And let's say has left a huge influence just on the world, really. That's something that we have to point out. But anyway, let's go back. We are speaking about today Rabbi Raphael Yisrael. It's a great rabbi, one of the hidden righteous people. So we've got 15 years of age. To the famous Sunderland Yeshiva, was close to Rabbi Dessler, and on Dessler's death, when his family expressed a desire to commit his teachings to writing, they turned to Rabbi Yisrael, and great rabbis note as say, form a large part of the famous compilation Nichtav Eliyahu. Very, very interesting. He would also become close to other rabbis. Rabbi Chaim Shmuel Lopian was the son of Rabbi Eliyahu Lopian. From, I think, he absorbed teachings, very much grew in Torah. His mentor was Rabbi Hanoch Ehrentraut, who I think would then become a judge in the United Kingdom. And it was also in Sunderland that Rabbi Yisrael would meet famous Rabbi Kahanama and Rosh Yeshiva Ponevezh and Bnei Brak, with whom he remained very close to throughout his lifetime. Friends, we are speaking of famous French-based Rabbi Raphael Yisrael. We're going to take a short 1-minute break, a couple of minute break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes, friends. So just watch your space, and please, thanks. Shalom everyone, we're exploring a few highlights of Rabbi Yisrael over here, and very, very interesting. So he would actually learn in the famous Sunderland Shiva, and very much make strong connections with many famous rabbis at that point in time. And he possessed, let's just say, a phenomenal knowledge of the Torah. He knew over the entire Talmud, various commentaries by heart, mastering even the most difficult tractates in its own. And especially this is also the same in regards to the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch. Also, we have to point out, and various other commentators within regards to that, so we can see his brilliance was apparent. And let's see, he was very, very evident, just say, from the masterwork of the Menuhat Aharon, which was a 17-volume compilation of various commentaries on the Talmud, which was in great depth, let's just say, in itself, and various volumes which were written when he was a young student in the yeshiva, and very, very interesting. He would come to him for bracha, and just because of his apparent greatness, let's just say, real greatness, let's just say. Now, eventually, I think in the year 1975, he would arrive, I think, in France, in an area called Sari Keles, if I'm not mistaken. So this was 1975. At that point in time, he would be, let's just say, in his prime at that point in time, he would stipulate as a condition, I think, of his settlement in the city, that a kollel be established over there. At a time when I think, maybe there wasn't necessarily kollel structure in place, and the Rabbi, let's say, Rabbi Yisrael would instill to the members of the community a huge passion and love for Torah. Many people would start sending their children to Torah institutions, and so we have to point out over here. And many French Orthodox families in current day are descendants of, let's say, this revolution that was brought about by Rabbi Yisrael in the area of Sari Keles. Respectively, so that's very much have to point out over here. And he published his work in Menuhat Aharon, and many of his writings of his uncle, Rabbi Yisrael, let's just say, that inspire him to some degree, if I'm not mistaken. And very important. And his publishing the work was, and we have to point out. And so that's something that we very much have to point out. And he had a huge devotion, as you say, to the community. If I'm not mistaken, this Rob Kajkin, who was, I think, Rosh Hashiva in an area of X-less veins, once asked Rabbi Yisrael to move to France and lead the community there, but Rabbi Yisrael refused initially, unwilling to abandon his followers in Sar Keles. Rabbi Kajkin promised to bless him that he would receive a swift and complete recovery, for apparently he had a health problem. Even this promise could not sway the rabbi's determination and devotion to his community, let's just say, and he relinquished hope of the cure to remain with the people and continue to guide them. That's something we have to point to that. So very interesting. So he was very, very sought after in France. That's something we have to point out within regards to this rabbi. Very, very famous rabbi. We have to chat with your friends, and everyone tuning in live, welcome to our community. And where is this area of Sar Keles? I think it's in northern suburbs of Paris, France, if I'm not mistaken. It's about maybe 10 miles away from Paris, reported. So that's, I don't think we've spoken about a rabbi that was actually from there, from that specific area, before here on this series. Now, he was close to other rabbis, especially Rabbi Chajkin, if I'm not mistaken. He passed away eventually on the first Badar, I think in 2006, around 20 years ago, here from the time of recording. And he would, even to the time of his passing, even before that, he would still greet everyone in public, receive the public, and help many blessings, provide advice, and so on and so forth. And I think he did suffer some health issues during his lifetime, especially in the mid-1990s, and he kept on going at the time, learning, immersing in Torah. That's something we very much have to point out within regards to him. So many stories that you put out. There's Torah-box.com that very much, let's just say, encompasses many of the stories, and was, the kollel itself was incredible. He did a lot of Yisroel Nefesh, self-sacrifice. He did suffer from health issues, as we did state about here from the beginning, but he would always have patience with everybody, and really achieve huge amounts, and there's a lot of stories actually you have to put down also, which is very, very interesting. Friends, we're going to take another break here for a minute, and then we'll come back and say a few more words with regards to him. And he was very much famous as a rabbi. He's time of this great man. Happened to have Rabbi Yisrael. Okay, so just be patient. We'll be back in a minute, friends. Pleasure. Okay, we'll be back in a minute, friends. Hi, Shalom everyone, thanks for being patient as we're exploring a few highlights. Famous rabbi that will make his imprint, let's just say, in France, in Orbital. Many stories is actually stated over with regards to Rabbi Yisrael. We have to point out, which I very much recommend everyone there, especially Torah Box website, actually puts it down. Many of the famous stories within regards to him that I very much have to point out. He was from Fez, from Morocco. He studied famous Yeshiva in Sunderland, great Talmudic college, and you can see very, very interesting. So we can say a few more with regards to him. He, as we said, we had exceptional, let's just say, qualities, brilliances in himself, and passed difficult exams all throughout. He was close to Diane Weiss, if I'm not mistaken, and would, let's say, really challenge him, and because of the sharpness, he was able to get it, and that's very, very interesting. So, friends, anyone tuning in live, we're exploring the highlights of the Rabbi and Rabbi Yisrael. Something has to point out because it is the Hilula of this there. He's very much will make his mark in not just in Morocco itself, also especially in France. We have to point out, and it was actually through Rabbi Josio Charbitz that would actually inspire him initially to go to the famous Sunderland Yeshiva over there. He also met Rabbi Meir Karelitz over there, and I think his brother of the Chazon Ishmael, so Rabbi Shmuel, another famous rabbi, and he would attend lectures of some of the great Jewish philosophers, including Rabbi Dessler, as we mentioned about here from the start. So that's very interesting. So, and I think it's close to Rabbi Itzhak Gabriel of Strasbourg, if I'm not mistaken, in late 1950s, when actually attempted to really come to that point in time. I think Rabbi Yisrael married mistaken, that was someone from the hometown who studied at Bet Yaakov School in X-Bains, and very interesting. And I think it was the descendant of Rabbi Yehuda Ben Attar, the author of Orach Chaim Kadosh. They had 4 children in Sunderland, so that's very, very interesting. So, yeah, Rabbi Yehuda Ben Attar, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, one of the great rabbis of his time. Let's say a word with regards to his children actually be descendants from Rabbi Ora Chaim HaKadosh Yisrael himself, obviously very known as, he lived from 1696 to 1783. He was a Talmudist, he was a Kabbalist, and regarded very highly, even among Hasidim, and if I'm not mistaken, and he was the son of Rabbi Moshe ben Natar, the grandson of Rabbi Chaim ben Natar, the elder, and very interesting to speak about Ora Chaim HaKadosh, who would have a connection very much so with Rabbi Yisrael over there. He would marry Rabbanit Fatzunia, and very interesting, I think her father would actually help support him initially, if I'm not mistaken, and Torah level is coming in a premium at that point in time, so that's something that comes out. And Ora Chaim HaKadosh, how great he was very great. He did record a video about it the previous year, very much to point out. Okay, so what's interesting, so Rabbi Raphael Yisrael, various commemorations have been made in honor of him, let's just say. I think the Hespedim initially would actually take place on the second of Adar, not the first of Adar, over there. So I think they actually recorded it and chronicled it. Let's just say eulogies were delivered before the departure of the Aaron, let's say, to Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, and in favor of the entire community for which Rabbi Yisrael, blessed memory, dedicated himself tirelessly for more than 30 years. Just shows the testimony of the greatness with regards to them. So other rabbis will be connected to many of the teachings of Rabbi Israel, and would like give the green light for him to go to various places. Rabbi Shalom Beros, maybe Shalom Beros, I'm not too sure. Rabbi Yitzchak Oel, Rabbi Gabriel Itam, Rabbi Michael Brand, Rabbi Abraham Al-Haddad, Rabbi Yosef Azran, Rabbi Yosef Eliyahu Sharbet. It's very, very interesting. So these rabbis have some sort of connection with a strong connection with the ultra-Orthodox community in that particular time. Here, anyone tuning in live, welcome to part of the tidbits with regards to the rabbis of yesterday, okay. Yeah, so you can see, obviously, Ora Chaim HaKadosh wrote many works in his own right, but to my understanding, just the greatness of these rabbis, especially Rabbi Raphael Yisrael, was very, very second to none, and I think it was in the second Adar the eulogies were given, and actually March the 2nd, 2006, and very, very important to learn more about that specific time. Certainly we had many evidences. So we want to point out somewhere we have visited, and Rabbi Raphael Yisrael, great rabbi, passed away 2nd March 2006. Really tirelessly gave himself away to the community. So, wishing you all well. Thanks for watching. And also the Rabbi Yisrael CD that has come out in the shops. They talk about different, let's say, important Jewish personalities, rabbis. We have to say something that we have to point out. And we're exploring a few of the highlights of Rabbi Raphael Yisrael, especially. So anyone want to learn more or learn together, please send an email. So thanks everyone, and watch this space for more content.